The Climate Prediction Center issued the final La Nina advisory. That advisory is still in effect, but it likely will be changed to neutral on Friday. And it appears we'll be in neutral conditions through the spring and summer, but looking like La Nina will return once again for this fall and winter. And it is the 14th anniversary of the devastating 2011 North Carolina tornado outbreak that saw a mile-wide tornado EF3 tearing through Raleigh, crossing 3 interstates and devastating suburbs around there. Also, some of the other counties across North Carolina saw EF2 to EF3 tornadoes, and even in Virginia, a nuclear power plant escaped disaster after power was cut. And finally, by nightfall, the Atlantic absorbed the storm's wrath, ending a 52-hour outbreak of devastation. Thankfully, in terms of damaging tornadoes, this has been kind of a slow month. We do have return flow setting up in the southern plains, dew points coming up into the 50s across Oklahoma and North Texas, with 60s on tap just to the south. But we're starting to get some deterioration of weather from the west, starting with this system right here in Nevada and a even more powerful weather system in the northern plains. Temperatures in the 30s pushing out of Alberta this afternoon, with snow from Canmore down towards Great Falls. In the northeastern U.S., cold. Is that any big surprise? 30s in the New England mountains, 40s across Pennsylvania to upstate New York, inland Maine, 50s elsewhere, but we did have 60s across Virginia. A freeze warning is in effect for northwestern Virginia around Staunton, Harrisonburg up to Edinburgh. Temperatures will be down into the upper 20s. Frost advisory across much of the northeastern U.S. from Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Harrisburg down towards northern and western Virginia. Low 30s forecast for tonight, and a winter weather advisory continued into the afternoon. Around Oneida County, the Lake Ontario snowbelt, additional 1 inch of snow expected, and it is coming down right now. Clear skies across the southeastern U.S., mild conditions with 60s in the Piedmont region, 70s elsewhere, and we did find some 80s around Orlando down towards Miami. A frost advisory is in effect for North Carolina, the cities of Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and Durham, down to Montgomery and Moore counties. Temperatures will be in the low 30s tonight. In the southern plains, another warm day, widespread 80s from Louisiana and Texas, all the way up into Kansas, as far north as South Dakota. We do have a few 90s in the Trans-Pecos region around Monahans, Fort Stockton, and down the Rio Grande Valley to Laredo and Del Rio. We may see a few thunderstorms popping up in this area right here around Fort Stockton, tracking into Sterling City, and maybe dying off around San Angelo after dark. Things are getting active. We've got increasing westerly flow. You can see that across the Rockies right there with the approach of a Pacific weather system. We have a high wind watch for tomorrow in much of northeastern and central New Mexico. Southwest winds will be gusting to 65 miles an hour, blowing dust likely across a huge area from east of Tucson up to Clayton and just west of Amarillo. And we do have red flag warnings and fire weather watches. I'm not going to go through all of those, but if you're anywhere in this area, you need to be careful with those outdoor fires. In fact, no fire is probably a better idea. Hot weather across the Great Plains this afternoon from southwestern Nebraska. They're in the mid-80s, 80s all the way to Pierre and Yankton. 70s as far north as Bismarck. However, that cold air mass nosing into Montana, we had 60s around Billings and Miles City today, but 40s around Great Falls, 30s at Cut Bank. So that cold air is close at hand. We do have a marginal risk of severe thunderstorms in the northeastern panhandles. Checking to see if that's on the map there. Yeah. It's going to be this area right here where we have cumulus forming. We're going to see that continuing to increase through the afternoon. Storms breaking out and tracking across Kansas this evening and into Kansas City, the Ozarks, and Missouri during the pre-dawn hours. And we could see warm convection around St. Louis around morning as that strong low-level jet, about 40 to 50 knots, crosses that region. Downburst wind and hail are the main hazards. We're not really expecting to see anything in the way of tornadoes, but of course you can't rule out one isolated one here or there. In the southwestern region, it was warm, including the Rockies. They had 70s throughout Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, 80s in southeastern Colorado. However, winter storm warnings are in effect around Wyoming, off the top of the map there. Tonight through Friday, Casper, Riverton, Buffalo, Sheridan, all in that warning. 3 to 5 inches of snow and 45-mile-an-hour winds are possible. The Bighorn and Absaroka range under winter weather advisories for up to a foot of snow. Those winter storm watches extend into the I-80 corridor, central Wyoming. Some areas between Cheyenne and Laramie could be affected by some of that snow and cause travel delays. Red flag warning today and tomorrow for the Sangre de Cristos, the Pueblo, Colorado Springs area. Southwest winds 45 miles an hour today, and then tomorrow 60 miles an hour. So travel problems there as well, especially if you're in a high-profile vehicle. Those problems will extend eastward along US 50 into La Junta and Lamar. And for the Southwest proper, it was another hot one in the deserts. Low 90s, though not as bad as a few days ago. Red flag warnings, as we mentioned, today and tomorrow, especially for New Mexico. We could have blowing dust all the way down towards El Paso. And for tomorrow, New Mexico is in an extreme fire danger risk from Albuquerque over to Tucumcari, north to the Sangre de Cristos, and south towards don't know the names of the towns, south of I-40, but it's going to extend right down to there. And the rest of the southwest from east of Tucson to the Panhandles under a critical fire danger risk. And let's see, the Mojave Desert. Oh, look at that. Look at that marine layer. All the way into the Los Angeles, Riverside, Ontario area, fog and stratus. Let's get a closer look at that. There you go. That's a deep infiltration of stratus into the Los Angeles, San Diego area. There's the interstates, so you can see the outlay of where the cities are. And we're getting some reverse clearing coming in from the Pacific, and I think that is due to the approach of instability from the west. You can already see some convective cloud elements on the mountains near Ventura County and even down into the Los Angeles area. In the northwestern U.S., our problems are in Montana. Winter weather advisories for tonight all through southern and southwestern Montana, including Billings, Bozeman, Butte, Helena, and Missoula. Due to the potential for 2 to 6 inches of snow, Interstate 90 and Interstate 94 expected to become slick and hazardous. And up in the mountains, they're expecting up to 1 to 2 feet of snow, mostly above 6,000 feet. Further to the west, a clear day, but we do have wind advisories in the northern Columbia River Basin from Wenatchee to Omak. North winds gusting to 50 miles an hour possible. There's a little tail end segment of the cold front moving south through that part of Washington. And we head west into the Pacific, and we do find a upper level low. Very weak reflection at the surface. If you look at the isobars, just a little elongation that way. But in the upper level field, if you look at the thickness, which is those red lines, they have a concentric appearance, and that outlines an upper level low located in that region there. Anyway, we'll cover more of that shortly. High pressure modifying polar air mass off of the Washington coast, and then stormy conditions in the Bering Sea and Gulf of Alaska. 982 millibar low out there south of Bethel. They do have blizzard warnings from the Newtok area up to Norton Sound and on the North Slope coast. That goes through Barrow and Prudhoe Bay as well. Blizzard warning into Friday morning, 2 inches of snow with blowing snow, 50-mile-an-hour gusts. But the remainder of Alaska under this deep southerly flow And when we have that southerly flow, we get those wind warnings on the north slope of the Alaska Range. You can see that one station right here, 40 knots sustained with almost certainly higher gusts. I think that's going to be maybe Fort Greely, somewhere in that area. And then further to the south, we've got wind warnings in the foothills around Anchorage. They're expecting gusts as high as 90 miles an hour until 1 a.m. Strong southeast winds as that low pressure area moves east and transits into the Gulf of Alaska. Here's the setup right now. I mean, how many channels show you this kind of detail? I mean, we're looking at these detailed charts of Alaska, and you can see that strong gradient through Anchorage to Valdez, and gradually all of that shifts eastward towards Yakutat and the southeastern Panhandle region. But some cold air infiltrating from Siberia. We don't show this chart too often, but there it is. This is the temperature chart indicated by that blue and purple shading. Cold air filtering through St. Lawrence Island to St. Paul and down into the Bering Sea and wrapping right around that low pressure area. There it goes. So pretty good push of cold air into here, and the warm air wraps around into the interior regions, so some rather mild conditions around Fairbanks. Then heading over to Canada, cold conditions continue in the Canadian Arctic. Down to the south, rather quiet, this system transiting the prairies, but strong upslope flow in Montana and southwestern Alberta, driving a snowfall warning from around just west of Cardston up to Canmore, 4 to 6 inches of snow today, ending tonight. We also have snowfall warnings around Gillam up to Indian Lake to Nunavut. No amounts have been mentioned, but they are expecting heavy, wet snow there. A strong system in Labrador and parts of eastern Quebec, but no warnings in effect. And that's going to be our tour of the Great White North. Checking out the 500 millibar heights and vorticity, we see a vortex center about 200 miles west of Los Angeles. That's that upper level low we were talking about a minute ago. Troughing up to the north, this is affecting Montana for tonight, and a larger area of troughing off the northeastern U.S. associated with the area of cold advection sweeping across that part of the country. Going into the overnight hours, this cutoff low starts moving onshore into Southern California. This trough digs southward, so those are obviously going to hook up going into tomorrow. So let's watch that happen. Those troughs coming into phase right there, and there it goes. So large area of troughing across the Rockies, the Four Corners area going into Friday. We're going to see some rather potent weather starting tomorrow in Utah, western Colorado, probably some strong convection, rain and snow showers shifting southward during the day into tomorrow night. And this trough moves through the Four Corners area late Friday and into the plains for Saturday and Sunday. And we can see that by Monday, this cutoff low wandering to the northeast into the Great Lakes area, and then more troughing in the northwest. And pattern looks a little bit more quiet going into midweek, but this time of year, there's moisture flowing north, so those chances of thunderstorms will be on the increase. And we can size that up with the integrated vapor transport. This will be increasing overnight as that low-level jet strengthens and taps deeper moisture to the south. So obviously an emphasis on Kansas and Missouri overnight, and gradually going into tomorrow, this entire frontal boundary getting pretty good inflow of moisture. And that'll persist through Friday and Saturday. And gradually going into Sunday and Monday, things start slipping off to the east. Regeneration for Tuesday and Wednesday on the Great Plains. This will be our next shot of storms and showers. Kind of fizzles out there towards Thursday. And towards the very end for Friday the 25th, starting up in the central and northern plains. Not so much for areas down south. So let us put it together and look at the forecast. There it is. Extensive snow, upslope conditions, helping with that lift. When you have high relative humidity, all you really need for precipitation and clouds is to get further ascent, push those parcels up to their LCLs, and there you have condensation and cloud and precipitation formation. That's exactly what's happening there in Montana, as well as they have dynamic lift also assisting with that. Storms in Kansas as well. There they go during the overnight hours and then shifting into Missouri around daybreak. The Northeast starting to warm up. We see 50s from Portland to Boston and Albany, 60s from New York City to Pittsburgh. In the north-central U.S., cold air bulldozes into the northwest high plains, including Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas. We'll see highs in the 30s and 40s throughout this entire area. Storms and showers developing closer to the front, especially near this warm sector. SPC currently forecasting a slight risk in eastern Nebraska into Iowa, into adjoining parts of Minnesota and Missouri. The main risk is going to be large hail, especially around Omaha and western Iowa, but all hazards are possible. And we've got convective showers and a few storms developing around Salt Lake City up to southwestern Wyoming, and those will be shifting southward along this very strong cold front throughout the day on Thursday. There they go. So if you're around Grand Junction, Provo, Price, you may see some very interesting weather for tomorrow afternoon. And of course, blowing dust picking up across New Mexico along and behind this cold front. El Paso, Las Cruces, Alamogordo, all looking at restricted visibilities due to dust. As we go into Friday, the warm air shifts eastward with the upper level ridge. So by Friday, we're looking at hot weather across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, 70s and low 80s across much of that region. Chicago up to 79, Detroit 77, Grand Rapids 76. Meanwhile, cold air continues to sink into the central plains, cutting into those hot temperatures. Bitterly cold day in Denver. They're looking for 38 for a high, 39 at Colorado Springs, lots of 30s all across Interstate 25 from Colorado Springs to Sheridan, 30s east to Akron and Lyman. Could see another slight risk across northwest Texas into Oklahoma, Wichita, Amarillo, all through this area, Illinois, Indiana, southern Michigan, all ahead of that cold front. So right now the main hazards look to be large hail and downburst winds. Of course, a tornado can't be ruled out. South Texas hanging on to 90s, Laredo, Del Rio, San Angelo. Good chance of rain and snow showers all through Colorado. This would be kind of a stormy day there. And possibly another round of blowing dust around El Paso for Friday, so that will have to be monitored. Much cooler in the southwestern deserts. 70s for the most part for highs, 70s in the San Joaquin Valley. Los Angeles looking at 63. That'll be the coldest day this week in that region. Then for Saturday, that cold front gradually sinks to the southeast into the Ohio River Valley, the Ozarks, and North Texas. We'll probably see a marginal risk of severe weather or a slight risk somewhere in this area. The southwest begins warming up, and then by Sunday, they should see temperatures into the mid-80s. Another cold front coming south. More rain and snow possible across Montana. This front continues to try to clear out of the Midwest and Central Appalachians. And then by Monday, we see the heat rebuilding there in Texas. Storms starting to show up on the GFS panels, and they become more extensive by Tuesday as the next Pacific weather system moves into the Central Plains. And again, we saw this on the IVT chart, bringing the stronger moisture advection to the north. So most of our severe weather appears to be up to the north. We see that kind of reflected by this tighter thickness field indicating stronger winds aloft there. Meanwhile, ridging being suggested down to the south, so the storms down here a little bit more weaker, but they could be higher instability type storms. We're talking about low shear, high instability, high cape, that kind of thing. So that'll be something to watch for next week. Here's the remainder of the panels. Looks like kind of a tropical setup there in Texas, a little bit of isotropic lift going on. Oh, look at that. Yeah, that's indicative of northwesterly flow storms, maybe working down that boundary for Thursday next week. Then the next Pacific weather system begins its march across the Rockies, and we get to the very end of that panel there. So Most of our weather by Friday next week should be high plains type activity. And that's our show for today. I want to thank our many great supporters, people like Ryan Melberg, Brian Nelson, Jonathan Nye, Glenn, Ginger, Victor Hawk, and Thomas Jagger. Thank you very much for helping us support the program. And if you'd like to become a supporter and get access to those private Monday videos, here's the link for that, and anything you can do to contribute would be appreciated. All right, we'll see you back here on Friday for another edition. Take care and have a great Wednesday and Thursday. Bye-bye.